Hey everyone, welcome back to Bros and Shows. I am your host Josiah, aka Muller67, and with me, as always, I got my buddy, I got my pal, I got my brother Austin. Austin, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing okay. We're starting a little late just because we had to take care of a few things. It's perfectly good. We're here. We're going to do the show. Trying to get back on schedule, get used to everything. Holidays is over, but still things come up and we have to take care of them as they see fit. So what can you do? Yeah. Awesome. No, I'm glad to hear that. For me, I had a pretty unimportant weekend and it felt great. Because like the last 4 weeks have been a blur. Because I've been consistently getting off of work early and not having a full week of work, which I used to kind of like ground myself in reality is like the days I work, the days I'm home, I feel like I'm doing something correctly. Well, haven't had that in the last 4 weeks, so I feel like I show up to work and I'm like, all right, well, I did my day, so I'll see you guys in 2 days. Like, it's been like that the whole time. So I'm glad to be back to a normal schedule. Well, I hate it in a couple months or something like that where I'm burnt out. Yes, but that's why I have vacation days. I've cleaned up parts of my room. It doesn't look like it's clean because I have dishes right here, but I took out the old refrigerator I had up because it broke. And I replaced it with my SodaStream and my coffee maker, and I've been making coffee ever since. And I forgot how much I enjoy being able to make coffee at my computer desk and drink it at my computer desk. It helps me be more active. So if you see me being a little more active in the podcast, that's why.
Yeah, because it's full of coffee.
I'm jacked up on coffee right now, buddy. At 9 o'clock at night. It's not a smart idea, but well, what can you do? So yeah, no, that's basically been our weekend. Been playing Enshrouded with John. You joined us, Austin, John and Whitney, and we've been doing our enjoyment of playing that game and all that stuff. So that's been enjoyable. I've been playing Balatro on my solo, like whenever I have nothing else to do. Get frustrated with how badly RNG is a thing in that game. Like it's so like there's no story or anything, so it's just mindless like. And you know what I thought about, Austin?
Yeah, what's that?
I'm like, Balatro is going to be our generation's Spider Solitary. It's going to be the game that we're going to be playing like when we're like 80 and we don't know how to like play Fortnite 58 and we're just like, put Balatro on. I like the flush deck. The checkered deck is my favorite deck.
I always like to have a challenge, so I like the yellow deck. That's one of my favorite.
Yellow deck's fun. I'm a big fan of the multiplier Joker. And like that'll just be us when we're like 80 in like 50 years. But no, it just it's a funny thing. Hey Molly. But I was thinking about that, and then I also thought, I'm like, man, we need to get Balatro for our mom. Put that on her phone. She'll become a gamer overnight. Because it's like, she's already a gamer, right? She is a gamer. She's the Facebook mom gamer, like playing those little like like what were they called? They're like point and click, like point and finds or whatever it is. Yeah. She loves those things. She plays them all the time. I went over to visit her. I haven't seen her forever, and she's on her little iPad going, Mama, oh, look at this. And I'm like, that's great, Mom. That's beautiful. I love that. Love that for you. We can get Balatro on that for her, and she'll be like, it's like Spider Solitary, except the Jokers are funny. So it'd be interesting to do. Boston, enough about me. What about you? What you been doing, man?
Oh man, I've been having a really busy weekend. So we got a foster kid that came in on Thursday. So we've been he's like 7 years old, so we've been dealing with him, and he's full of energy. So he's constantly. But what was really funny is like my wife finally found out what anime was. It was so funny.
How did she?
Well, she knew what it was, but she didn't understand what it meant. Like she was like, "Oh, I've heard the name, but
Why is this
why is
anime?
it called anime?" And I was like, "Oh, well, this is like a Japanese style of like animation." And like I showed her like what it looked like, and she was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Okay." So she's like,
what'd you show her? That's
Okay,
my
so
question.
here's
I
the
want to
thing.
know.
So I came home like Thursday, and she was like, "Hey, I have a question. Do you know what anime is?" And I was like, "Yes, Sid, I know what anime is." And she's like, "Okay, well, he's wanting to watch the show, and I have no clue like how to find it or anything." And I was like, "Do you know the name of it?" She's like, "Inuyasha," and I was like, "Inuyasha," and she's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's it." So I go in and talk to him. I was like, "Hey, do you like Inuyasha?" And he's like, "Yeah, I love Inuyasha." I was like, "Do you want me to like find it for you?" And he's like, "Yeah, totally." So I put it on for him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" So he's been watching Inuyasha, but then he's like pressing the limits of like what I'm going to allow him to watch. So like,
What do you mean by that? Because I know
so there,
Inuyasha gets a little like racy at
it's
different places.
well, you know, like I'm talking about like when it gets to a point where it's ultraviolet or it's very like explicit content,
Which is like 80% of Inuyasha. Like it's a
or
high school
sexual.
fantasy
Yeah,
show.
but more like sexual content that I'm like,
Which is
okay, I
again
can't
80% of Inuyasha,
Yeah.
because like the vibe of Inuyasha is like the love triangle between
It
Kagome,
is. It
Inuyasha,
doesn't-
and Kikyo. Like
Yeah, but it
it's
doesn't
not like
like-
shows a lot of stuff, but
Yeah,
but there is like in all anime the hot spring episode where you're kind of like ho, don't want parents to come in on that one.
So then, yeah, that actually was the episode that he started watching, and I was like, oh, here we go, let's go past this, and he was like, oh, okay, and I was like, yeah, bad stuff, and he's like, oh,
just,
okay,
just avoid
You
Roku.
understand.
Not Roku. What's the priest? I can't remember his name. He has like the beads on because he has a hole. He does the
Yeah, I
wind
forget.
tunnel thing.
Yeah, see,
He's
I
he's a
watched it
womanizer.
since
He's
I was
all
a
about
kid.
like patting the girls' butts and like straight up
Yeah.
molesting. He's a monk, so
Yeah, so there
That's
was this
what-
other one.
Yeah.
So my mom's like, oh yeah, he stopped watching Inuyasha. He made me put on this other anime. And I was like, did you find out what it was? And she's like, yeah, it's some zombie anime. I was like, oh, okay, what anime? And she's like, High School of the Dead. And
no,
I'm like,
no. The second you said zombie anime, I'm like, there's only one zombie anime I know
Yeah.
of, and it's one
Yeah.
I'm not proud that I know of.
No. So I was like, Sid, no. And so I go in and I was like, this is inappropriate. You're not allowed to watch it, bud. I'm sorry. And then he was like, oh yeah, well show me. There's nothing wrong with this. And I was like, it is very highly explicit. And I even just looked at the art and I was like, look,
Yeah,
that girl has big bosoms. Like these are
Big
big. You know,
bosoms.
we can't do this. You know, I'm trying to like be sensible.
well, I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
He's like 7 years old, and so he's like getting to
Yeah.
that age where he's like interested in finding out like what it is that's like interesting
Yeah.
about that to adults. And then you're
Yeah.
like, don't do this, kid. Like, please, like. I don't
So,
want to have like
he was
I'm
like-
not the one to have
he's
this
like,
conversation
"Oh,"
with you.
He's like, all right, well, show me that something's wrong. And I was like, okay, how about we have an unbiased person that's never watched really an anime and we'll let them decide. So I was like, Sid, come in. And she was like, okay. And I was like, here, let's watch this. You know, let's just turn this on for maybe 5 minutes, you know? And she's like, okay. And within 2 seconds of me clicking it, panty shot. And Sid was like, whoa. And I was like, yep, this is what you have to know. And she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I was like, anytime that you're doing anything that like involves animation or something and he wants to
That's-
watch it, like especially with anime,
That's
you
crazy.
need to talk to me. So he also wanted Demon Slayer. I was like, no, I'm tying that down. Like, sorry, bud, but like, you know,
Oh, I know. Okay, Demon Slayer. I know idea something.
yeah, it's just very explicit content. Like, it's violent, like very violent. And I was like, you know, I just don't feel comfortable with yet. I was like, I'm okay with like.
You know what you should have him watch?
What?
Spy X Family. Nothing's
Yeah.
more wholesome than Spy
Well,
X
I thought-
Family.
I also told him Trigun. Like he started watching some Trigun.
Trigun can be a little bit because like
It's goofy.
Well-
like,
well,
it's,
no, there's literally the episode, like the first episode, the one guy is about to assault Million.
that's fine.
Wow, I remember Millie's name because I love Millie, but I can't remember the other girl's name. I feel so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Derringer, it's Derringer something.
Mm.
Because it's Stungun, Millie, and Derringer something. I feel bad. I'm a fan. I have Trigun little wall scroll right there, and I can't remember their names. I have
it's-
failed the anime convention.
But no, so the thing was after that was done,
Mhm.
he actually started. He found out he. So I wear this hat. You probably have seen it. It's white and it has like flaps down here. And he looks straight at me, and he reminds me of you a lot when you were that age. He has that talk problem, like the speech problem that you had.
Oh,
where
speech impairment.
He talks too fast.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he doesn't like pronounce his words. So
I
he
still
was
do
like,
that.
He was like, "Hey, you look like Finn," and I was like, "Huh?" And he's like, "You look like Finn," and I was like, "I look like who?" And he's like,
Finn. Finn
I
the
was like,
human.
"Oh," and then he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "I love Adventure Time." I was like, "Oh yeah, you really?" So like me and him sat around today and watched like maybe like 15 episodes of Adventure Time. So me and him watched Adventure Time, and then he watched SpongeBob, and then Sid's birthday was today. So we were like, "Happy birthday!" And we like hung out with her most of the day. So
Mm.
yeah, we've had a lot of fun, a lot of stuff going on this week, and then tonight we're getting a bad snowstorm supposedly here soon.
I did hear that. Yeah,
Yeah. So
because it's going to hit us at some point.
and I'm supposed to go back to work starting tomorrow. Like it's my first day back at the school, and like they sent emails out that was like, "Hey, if we are on a snow day, that does not mean you guys don't work. We have to do all of our virtual meetings." And I'm like, "Ah, crap!" But I at least could stay at home.
Yeah, virtual
and-
means. Heck yeah, I'd take that any day. Call in, be like, "Yes, I am in my teacher apparel. Just do not look below the desk because
don't
I am
have to-
completely in
don't have-
underwear."
You do not have to use the camera house. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
gonna be
that's
like,
so easy.
"Yeah,
I'll call in on my phone and then just put me on mute and just walk around with it. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm
you
gonna
kidding
do.
me? I'll fall back asleep.
Austin? What? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Austin, we were raised as like growing up. Our dad woke us up by yelling our names. Oh, we hear our names sleeping, we wake up. Like
Yeah.
that has been embedded into our brain. All right, Austin, that sounds cool. It sounds like a cool kid you're having this time around. So pretty chill, pretty great. I found it hilarious that whenever you said that, I instantly knew he said Finn whenever he talked. So maybe two people with that brain
Yeah.
can collaborate at some time. So maybe you should show him Steven Universe. Maybe he'll like Steven Universe. That's a very anime-esque show if he hasn't already seen it.
Like that. Yeah.
But Austin, we're not talking about Steven Universe. We're not talking about Adventure Time. Heck, we're not even talking about Trigun. We're talking about What We Do in the Shadows, Season 6, the finale of a series that we have watched every year since the beginning of the show. That we love because we're big fans of just the vibe, the style, and Matt Berry is amazing. And we've come a long way, man. We've grown a lot, we've changed a lot, and in some ways we can sit back and look on it like nothing really happened. So Austin, what did you think of What We Do in the Shadows season 6?
So it is sad. It is a very sad moment that it did end, but I'm also very glad that they decided, like, the thing is I've always been, I like an ending of a show if it's done very well, tasteful, but also it knows that it can't go on and just drag out seasons. That's the problem I have with a lot of shows like this. And so when they said, "Hey, I'm going to end," I felt a little sad. I was like, man, I really like this show, but I also understand, like, it's getting to a point where you're like, oh, okay, like Always Sunny's kind of like that in my opinion. Like they still are good seasons. I love their seasons, but if they came out and said, "Hey, we're going to end it after the next season," I'd be like, yeah, I totally understand. Like, so when they announced this, I also realized is that some of the stars now are getting huge. Like they're in other things. Like Matthew Berry is almost in everything I've seen.
They're all
Shaw,
raising.
Guillermo.
The person who plays Guillermo, I can't remember his name. I follow him on TikTok and I find him so enjoyable. He's voice acting in Hell of a Boss, which is a series I really want you to watch at some point, because they just finished season 2. But he voices a character now in that show, and I'm really excited because he's a super delightful person. He just has a great energy, and I think he's going to be a good energy for that show panel as well. But no, I get you, and that is probably like the biggest pro to this, right? Like They're ending it at 6 seasons. 6 seasons is a really good thing. And the
Yeah,
beautiful part,
they already have a movie.
exactly, there's 6 seasons of movies. They literally did the perfect run. Like,
They did.
the only thing that could have been better is if they ended the series with actual character development of any sort. But
I agree with that.
So obviously, like, this season was all about like different kind of like people kind of finding themselves to a degree,
Yeah.
and I just find it very funny. I'm not upset with the ending like some people are.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people were kind of upset that they like there was a couple things that they obviously did in the show, but there was a lot of like lines I felt that they did in the last couple episodes that kind of put perspective onto things. And like they obviously made jokes about certain ones and certain other stuff of that. So I appreciate it. But I wasn't too upset with the ending of the show. Like, I was sad that it was ending, but it all made sense to me. Like, if I'm being honest, it just made sense. So, like, I don't know, what do you think of the ending, Austin? Like, your personal opinion. Like, 100% how it ended, story, how I got there. Like, what was your thoughts on that? You okay?
Yeah, my headset thing, my headset was being weird.
Oh, okay, like it was on
Well,
like
Well, I have a multi-port, so I could have a sound bar too.
Mhm.
And sometimes I forget about it.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, oh, and it's like this 5 thing. And sometimes like it'll go cut in and out sometimes because I'll accidentally hit it.
You may need a new headset then if it's doing that, or you
Oh,
need to get an
no,
adapter.
I need to get a better adapter. That's what I was planning on doing. That's my next pack. I will say this. I did enjoy some of the episodes of this season. I really enjoyed it. I thought the ending was well done and tasteful. And the thing is it made me laugh. That's all I wanted that show to do, is make me laugh. I don't really care too much about character development too much, but I am on the fence with that, where I do believe that there should have been some type of character development. And the ending episode kind of like, I think why people are angry is because they kind of like did this thing that I could see that could have like pissed off like a lot of their fan base. And that was the part where like they were like, oh yeah, we already filmed a documentary before. And then it was the same thing. They're like, oh yeah, water main break. And like, you know, and it's like all this stuff that I was here for has happened before. It's like, yeah. And I'm like,
But the funny thing is, right, I like that as a statement, because the reason why, like, this is why I liked it, and I can understand people not liking this. I liked it because you got the perspective of a fan versus them as characters, right? All the vampires are like, who gives a crap? It's ending. Yeah, we've had this before. We've had a documentary done on us before, and then it ends, and we just move on with our lives. That's like the point. It wasn't meant to be filming us for the rest of our lives. That's not the thing. And then Guillermo's like, there needs to be some type of ending. There needs to be something big happening, like some type of change. That's the fan perspective. So with everyone being upset, like there was no character development or anything like that, it's like these guys have lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and the theme of the show has that they never changed through the years. They've just been these idiots through their whole lives. What makes you think that they would change in 6 years? That made me laugh so hard at that realization when they were saying that. I'm like, yeah, what'd you expect? Just because they're being filmed that they're going to like grow and change?
Yeah.
And another thing that I really liked was what the guide said to Nandor whenever he's like, I love you. You've been in front of me the whole time. She's like, oh no, like, you don't love me. Like, I've been observing you from the beginning. Like, I know who you are. You don't love people. It's all conquest. You're just a conquest. Like, you just like the conquest stuff. When it came to, like, she named off a bunch of people. And she's like, even Guillermo, like, once you got the okay to be able to do that, you lost interest. Because you liked the chase, the conquest of it. I won't be another one of these things. I don't have those feelings for you. And then he's like, I wasn't listening, which was completely what Nandor would do. which was
Yeah.
funny. But like, yeah, that's why Nandor won't have character development, because he's stuck as like what this series literally is, and it's funny. It's vampires who need like therapy, who won't do therapy because they're vampires, you know?
So I'm gonna say this. I feel like so I like the theme of the show. I really enjoy it. I've loved the movie ever since when I found out the show was going to be made. That I was like, oh my gosh, the movie's fantastic. I can't wait for the show. And the show is great. I love the show. But there is another show on FX that makes me feel like it's the same show, just in a supernatural way, and that is Always Sunny in Philadelphia in a way.
Yeah.
Just because they're terrible people and they do terrible things, but it's funny because they get themselves in situations and then one of them is trying to fix the problem. The difference is Guillermo is part of that situation, where Guillermo is the smart one that's like, okay,
Guillermo fixes
why are you
everything.
doing
He's the like that's the build of the series, is that the vampires are not all there, or they're not connected with like the reality of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Guillermo's the grounder. And Always Sunny, and this is the issue I have with it, is you don't have a grounding character.
No, you don't.
They will just
Everyone
randomly
is-
at different points have the character become a grounded character, and then they just remove it. And I'm like, that I hate that. I can watch Always Sunny. I've watched it multiple times, and there are some generally funny moments and all this stuff. But it is literally a pill of like Tylenol, right? Take 1 or 2 or 3, like I'm fine over the day. You force me to take 6 or 7, I'm dying on the floor choking on my vomit. Like, it's not good. This show, I can watch multiple episodes and not get that feeling, because I always have Guillermo as that pillar of like, yes, thank you, Guillermo. Like, I love Guillermo's character. I love the actor, and it made it really obvious in this season.
I just realized what his name was. His name's Henry or Harvey Gearman, I think Gilman.
I'm not sure. I would have to look up. Yeah, no, I love him. Like, he has such like, have you watched any of his TikToks? He has a great energy to him. Like, anytime he's just talking or interacting, I love it.
I watched that, and then he was in a movie. I'm trying to think what movie he was.
He was in a couple movies. He's been doing a lot of voice acting stuff.
Well, he was in a movie, and I'm trying to think what it was.
Well, a live
Well,
action movie, also.
A live action movie.
Yeah,
He
because
was
those
in
other
that.
ones are movies too. But don't downplay people, because it's not. We went over this conversation, Austin. Animation is probably better than live action.
It is. I'm just trying to think what movie it was that he was in. Because I also know that he's in a show that we've been asked to watch multiple times. And I was like, oh, he was in the Blue Beetle movie, the DC animated Blue Beetle movie.
I didn't know that was a thing. Was that on like a streaming service only?
No, it was on theaters.
It was.
Yeah, so
I just don't really care for DC, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so this is like the James Gunn DC area.
Okay.
So like I'm okay with it, but the thing is I will say this. I was all right with the movie. I thought it was going to be great, but there is like, you ever have like an actor that you just don't like you just like, I don't like this person. Yeah, you know, I don't like Patton Oswalt, but Patton Oswalt, I've had him in certain roles where I'm like, okay, I'm fine with him, like him being the Raven and Sandman, or like, you know, a couple other roles. I'm okay with him.
Yeah, like him in Blade. Yeah. What, you don't like him in Blade 3? You don't like him? Come on. He was great. He got killed playing basketball, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was terrible. But but there is the number one actor in Blue Beetle that I hate is George Lopez. I do not think George Lopez is funny. Do you remember the Lopez?
Yeah. That's whenever you said the name, I had to think for it for a second, and
it's like cringy boomer humor, in my opinion. Like some of his stuff. And I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want this. But he was in that movie. I forgot. He played like one of the main roles. I forgot about that. But the show that I was thinking of, that everyone, one of our friends has been telling us, you have to watch it. I'll be on the podcast.
The Supergirl.
No, The Good Place.
Oh, The Good Place. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know he was in The Good Place.
Yeah, supposedly he's in it. Like I've read, like when I looked him up, I was like, oh, he's in The Good Place. But I also know he does another voice acting in a show I've been wanting you to watch. That I just realized that's what I was going to make you watch next, and that was Harley Quinn. He plays Nightwing in Harley Quinn.
Okay.
So, which is
That's
Robin.
no. That's
or
I mean,
Robin.
hey, if I got the ability to be a voice actor and they said you're going to be Nightwing, I would be like,
Well,
that's
Neil
a great
Patrick Harris-
one.
Neil Patrick Harris was Nightwing one time, and he did great. He's in
Well,
what
it's,
was it?
it's Neil Patrick Harris, unfortunately.
What?
Like, he could literally walk up to me and slap me, and I'd be like, "Thank you, sir."
Tell me I'm good.
He'd be like, "Yeah, I'm never doing that again." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm
gonna
sorry, dude. You're you're Dr. Horrible. You can do anything you want, man.
But
Don't do that
so,
too much, though. Like, we don't want another Neil Gaiman situation."
So this show, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was something that we bonded over, like, because I remember when I first told you to watch the show, I was like, hey, I love What We Do in the Shadows, the movie. I think you would really enjoy the show. We should start watching the show. And so then when we started that, and I remember, like, I knew instantly, I was like, Josiah's gonna love this show.
Oh,
He's
100%.
gonna have a lot of fun. And it was so funny, and I'll never forget the first episode we watched together, actually, was the episode, because you started watching it when we did it on the podcast, but I came down for a weekend and we watched the episode where Nandor and them go to the council, and Nandor like gets up there and he's like about the raccoons. He's like, I will kill every raccoon in the whole city, And I was like, oh man, that was such a good episode. But what's great about this is I quote this show a lot.
Yeah.
I enjoy this show. Matt Berry is phenomenal. Like Jackie Daytona making another like recall back in this. I was like, oh my gosh, it's
Which
Jackie.
that was a joke in itself that I really liked.
It was a
Because-
fan service joke.
Cause like the that whole thing about them yeah, we were in a documentary before, this is how it is. We also thought we needed to end with a big bang. And they showed how they did, and how they do it. Each of them do a funny thing that happened to them over again. He becomes Jackie Daytona. Don't forget my witch hat. And then it's like Calvin Robinson shoots himself in the leg. Nandor, I forget what Nandor did. He did something. Oh, he was in the middle of the speech about like, please clean up after yourself that he did in
Yeah.
episode 1. And like, that was the whole joke, is like, yeah, look at that. Haha, it's a circle. We fell back into itself, which is a very common thing for sitcoms to end on. It's like this idea that it's like, it ends in a way that you could rewatch it and keep going. And they like made the joke, like, we're not going to do that because we've done that already. You just didn't see it because we've lived
joke
so long.
has to go from like my favorite episode, my favorite joke of the finale is Nandor, when it was like nausea, and then they were talking about, oh yeah, he was turned into a vampire, and Guillermo was, and she's like, and then he wanted to turn back. We should have just ended it right there.
Yeah.
And he's like, did we learn anything? And he's like, yes, Guillermo should not have been turned into a fucking vampire.
Yeah. Well,
I was just like, I died.
what was funny is that I remember that season we talked, and that was one of the things I said. I'm like, that's how they should have just ended the series, was like
Yeah,
him
that's
becoming a vampire and him living with them. End of
Yeah.
series. And I think they knew that, and whenever they did that, they're like, it didn't really work. And I know, like, it's so funny. I was like on TikTok whenever the series finished up, and I was like reading people's like opinions on stuff. And I have to think that a lot of the anger that people have with this series is the fact that it does not have like any type of like functioning story development, which very common in sitcoms in the 90s. Like, yeah, there would be character growth and character development at different intervals and different times, but ultimately it would end and life would just go on for the characters, or they would do like some form of like big like goodbye. Like, what show was it? I think it was like Friends, where they like leave the apartment and like they move away.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's fine.
or no, I'm thinking of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air did that with
Oh,
them
yeah, they
like
did that
staring at
too,
the
yeah.
house and them leaving. So it's like, they could have done that with this show, but it wouldn't make sense. And that's why I loved the concept that they did in this show, where it's like, yeah, okay, we're cool. We're just going to go back to our day-to-day lives and not care. And Guillermo's freaking out because his life has been this show. And that's how like we are as watchers. That's why people are so upset, because they're like, it can't just end, right? It has to end with something big. And it's like, no, we are immortal beings. This is another Tuesday night. In 100 years, we're going to forget that we even did this. Just like Nandor forgot he was in sexy films. Or no, it was Matt Berry who was in sexy films. Yeah, but he remembered he was in it, but he forgot he like had certain things. Like they forgot Jerry existed. Like that to me was a satisfying ending for the series of a like the vampires are so self-narcissistic mentality that it makes complete sense that the second the film crew's like, we're done, they just stop trying to perform. They're like, all right, cool, we'll just sit down and just start chilling now. Like we've done for years. I like that.
That, and it gives an opportunity. Like you can't say that this kind of concept is dead. Because the thing is like FX could be like, hey, let's do a spinoff. And they'll 100%. Just do new characters, and then they'll just bring back like the other vampires from time to time to bring. They'll be like, oh, look, it's
the theory, all that would be the thing about What We Do in the Shadows being over is that Wakatiki is probably not going, or Wakatiki and the other ones are most likely not going to do that. They could be producers on it and just be like, yeah, you have a writing team, they do it, we give the okay, they're good to go type deal thing. They could do that.
You know, and Wakatiki got very popular with his films. You know, he's huge with his films. And Gerard Clemens is like a huge voice actor now. Like, you know, his outbreaking role, which I still haven't watched because of certain things, but it's Moana. Like he plays the crab. And supposedly he does a really good song. And I was like, oh, really? You know, and that's the thing. Is
I think Gerard Clemens was also known well before that because he was in Flight of the Conchords. Yeah. So he was probably the most famous of the three initially until Wakatiki got like what, Spider-Man? Thor, that's it. Okay. No, I'm thinking of Sam Raimi. My bad. Sam Raimi did Spider-Man. Yeah, he did Thor, but he was also like had his own movies and everything of that sort to that point. But now he's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is one of the people doing like all that stuff. Yeah. So it makes complete sense. It's perfectly fine. But I would be okay with like another series of What We Do in the Shadows, but like they change it to be like a different part of the world. Like we went from the movie, which was in UK, I think, to this one, which is in New Jersey. It'd be great to see like another one take place somewhere else where other hijinks happen.
Well, they also kind of set that up anyways with like a lot of other, like, you know, there's tons of vampires because I have to say it.
You gotta say it because I was laughing the whole time.
Because
the
Warriors reference, it didn't click until Colin Robinson said it at the beginning. He was like, "Oh yeah, the Warriors, 1976."
You said it didn't click there, right?
It didn't click.
I clicked away the second that they all started talking about the vampires coming together, and then they all get together, and the one dude says like, "It's good to see everyone. Suckers," or something like that, and I'm just like, okay, he didn't say can you dig it, but I get what they're trying to do here.
No, see, like Robin says the Warriors thing before they walk in.
I know, but I was saying like
that was the thing that clicked. I was like, wait a minute,
it was obvious what they were doing. They were doing the little
they were a Warriors remake, you know.
They were. It was great. It was fantastic.
Which is funny because like that's a movie that like you know, I'll remember the first time you ever watched that movie, because it was like that's when I got Josh starting to watch like certain films, because we were all hanging out, and I just lost my job, and I was like at home all the time, and you were still in high school, Josh, and we watched Scott Pilgrim, and he was like, "This is a really good movie. What other movie you got?"
I was like,
Warriors, and I was like, and then he was like, "Dude, this is really good," and I was like, "Oh yeah, you know," and he was like, "Man, you
gotta do other ones of these. This is fantastic."
So we've been...
that's the thing that I do like about that episode, because it was obviously a like reference to that show, like that movie, especially whenever they showed the Bronx like Barry team, like their vampire baseball teams. Oh, I remember. You know what was my favorite joke of this season? It was so stupid, but it made me laugh. Whenever Guillermo's cousin shows up to them and he pulls out the bat, starts beating on everyone, and then he turns to Laszlo to do it, he's just like, "Oh, that's a bat," and he flies off, and then he lands back. He's like, "Sorry, didn't mean to do that. I just meant to say that that's a bat." He's like, "It happens because I'm saying the word bat." That made me laugh. It was so stupid, but it made me laugh because it was like the attempt of like Laszlo not realize, like he knows why he's doing it, but he doesn't think like, hey, I probably should just stop saying the word.
Oh yeah, totally.
And then also the fact that like Guillermo, like his cousin shows up, he stops the vampire. He's like, what the heck? He's like, oh yeah, you have Van Helsing blood inside of you. So it's a long story. We just can kill vampires, and they go ham, and the other vampires just chill and watch. Like, I love that. That was such a fun, interesting episode. But I do find it funny that every time they have like a gathering of some sort in the whole series, it always ends with them being hunted in some manner. And then I love the fact that the Baron's like, why the freak did you kill Jerry? It's like, we didn't mean to, it was just some monster. It's like, no, I was going to kill Jerry. I knew what was going on. I'm not stupid. And I was like, that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
And then the monster shows up behind them. Does anyone have questions? You had a question. No, I think you answered it. Yeah, it was. Here's the funny thing, right? After I watched the final episode, I looked at my watch history of all the episodes, and like going back through it, I'm like, I remember this episode, but I don't remember the episode. Like, I remember what happened in this episode, and I kind of want to rewatch it. Was basically what my brain said. Like, keep watching. Like, you enjoy these characters. 6 seasons. That's like 10 episodes each. That's 60 episodes of just like hijinks that are self-contained. Every episode, you can watch random episodes and feel like you're not losing a lot. I personally think that What We Do in the Shadows was a fantastic series. If you didn't like the ending, I completely understand, but to me, I really liked the ending. I thought it made complete sense, especially for like someone like me who like I watch a lot of vampire stuff. I play a lot of vampire games. I do a Vampire the Masquerade LARP. The concept of time and how time has little meaning to eternal creatures, I think they hit it home in that last episode very well. And I understand, like, I definitely get people's dissatisfaction with the idea of queerbaiting when it came to Guillermo and Nandor, but to me, I'm like, I think that was a little easier to digest with me because of what the guide said to Nandor. I think I would be more upset with the ending if the guide and Nandor got together. But the fact that the guide said, no, we will never be, and here's why, it's because you only care about the chase. And so if you ever catch someone having the feeling, or you catch feels for something, you lose interest the second you attain it. You just like to conquest. I love that, because there's plenty of people like that. And when you're an eternal being who can live forever and you don't have to learn lessons because you can just bat away or get your familiar to fix it for you, it makes complete sense that he would be that way forever. So I love the ending. I definitely vibe with people who said that they didn't like the ending, but to me, I thought the ending was good. I thought it was great. Would I have loved a great ending of a form of like Guillermo and Nandor get together? Yes. I don't think it would have been satisfying with a single season.
Well, here's the thing. I thought the ending was ridiculous with Nandor and Guillermo, and I loved it. I laughed really hard because, there for a minute, I got tricked. I got tricked there for just a second because, he turns off the lights and then it goes with the credits. And I was like, oh no, man. I was like, but there's a little bit more left of this episode. I was like, this can't be how it ends. And then like the film production crew comes in like in the middle of the credits and starts doing all that, you know? And then the whole elevator thing when he's like, I've been working on this forever, and I was like, oh, that's so good.
Because that's like a callback to earlier in the, like an episode ago where he's like, crime fighting duo is what I've always wanted. And he's like, no, you've only started doing this about 2 weeks ago. Like, you're not, this is not something that you truly believe. And then in that moment, because of how far that tunnel is, you realize, no, this has been a thing that he's wanted for a very long time. I don't think he ever had someone who would have agreed to do it with him. and now he has that like friendship in Guillermo to do that.
Now they have to make a spinoff, which is just Guillermo and Nandor fighting crime, and him called Bat Dude instead of Batman.
Or Man Bat.
Because
he can finally be the Man Bat.
Yeah, so like I don't know, I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah, I
liked it all.
Completely would be cool with them doing another series with different vampires. Because I'm sure that some people would like to continue. These actors have probably want to move on to bigger things, just like the other vampires have. But as you pointed out, they can do like return episodes like they did for everything else. I'm sure people would like to see Guillermo like 10 to 15 years into the future in another series, and him and Nandor are like crime fighting masterminds.
And, I think Colin Robinson would be a good just like side story, because the thing is like Colin would, what if he moved out and went to someone else, and stuff like that. There's so many possibilities to come back and remake a show like this. And if they don't, great. We're left with something that is beautiful. You got your 6 seasons and the movie that was made the whole series. I remember watching the movie for the first time and I was like, dude, this is brilliant. Whoever thought of this concept is great. Like, this is a great movie. And I made a whole bunch of people watch that movie.
100%.
And
I did the exact
so
same. I saw it with my friend Gwen in the movie theaters one year, and after I was done, I'm like, I'm surprised I've never watched that, and she's like, I'm surprised you never seen that.
Yeah,
this is like completely up your alley.
I'll never forget the first time I ever watched it, because I was actually recommended by a friend of mine, which is my buddy Wayne. He was like, hey man, have you ever watched What We Do in the Shadows? And I was like, no, that sounds weird.
That sounds
stupid. It's about a whole bunch of vampires, and like it's a comedy. And I was like, all right, you got me. You hooked me with vampire and comedy. So then when I watched it, I was like, huh, that's Gerard Clemens. And then I was like, oh man, I'm really gonna like this. I remember just watching it, and I'll never forget the time when the part of the movie where they go down and the vampire hunter's dead, and they're like, what happened? And he's like, oh, the vampire hunter. And he's like, wait, that was really a vampire?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm a vampire hunter. That in spaghetti, every time someone has a plate of spaghetti, I always say, would you like some spaghetti? And people don't get that reference sometimes, and then some people do, and they just laugh. They're like, oh my god.
80% of my references from What We Do in the Shadow are Matt Berry's weird terminology, or Nando's like, this freaking guy, like,
or the best one that I use all the time, like the number one I've been using for the last couple years is just like, you are the most devious bastard in New York City. I use that one a lot. I think I'm glad that the show ended. It's sad because I really want more of it, but yeah, I'm glad that they just came to closure, and I was fine with it. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
And again, the other thing that made me laugh was Colin Robinson doing his little thing of saying like, don't be sad that it's ending, cry because you got to enjoy it. And he's like, I'm pretty sure I saw that on a coffee mug. He's like, yeah, I don't know, I'm pulling things out my butt, man. I was like, yeah.
Irish?
Are you Irish? I thought Wednesday you said.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Hey, the worst part is, and
now
this
he's
is
just gonna leave and go find his baseball cards now.
This is my only hang up with the series, and this isn't the series' fault. This is a me fault, right? I want to rewatch it because I know there's so many quotable, funny lines for the other like vampires as well, like Naja, Colin Robinson, Nandor, like. But the ones that I see so often are of Matt Berry's character and Nandor, of Laszlo and Nandor. Like, I'm a wizard, like, that's a very common one. Devious Bastard, or Chili Chilas, or whatever, like, Matt Berry says, like, they are very quotable, but I know for a fact there are things that Naja said and Colin Robinson have said that made me really laugh. Like, one of my favorite things to do is whenever people get in, like, start tensing out, and I know it's like meant for fun, specifically in Vampire LARP, I do this when like people are arguing in character, and then I catch someone's eyes, I'll just go like Colin Robinson energy. I love that. Like, that's a hilarious face. Like,
yeah.
Oh man.
Oh man.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Austin, do you have anything else to say to our good friend, What We Do in the Shadows, as we see them off?
Yeah, here it is. Thanks for the laughs.
Yeah,
I
thanks
had a
for
lot
the
of
laughs.
And I will keep watching. This will be a show that I watch from time to time when
Yep.
you know, and it might be one of my spooky shows.
It's
Where, like
it's
during the season.
it's going to be an October show for me. Like,
Yeah.
there's 3 locked in shows for me in October, and that's Over the Garden Wall,
Well, Gravity Falls.
Gravity
and What We
Falls,
Do in the
and now
Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows is added to
Yep.
this. And if you can tell, they're all comedy, they're all spooky, so
Mhm.
right there.
It's
Ah.
money, Hollywood. You hear that? More
Money.
spooky comedy.
Spooky comedies make me laugh, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm going to go see Nosferatu. No, I'm kidding. So, you know, that's not a spooky comedy. We'll see.
Pretty good. That's a pretty good movie.
But yeah,
Bill Skarsgård's pretty good.
that basically covers it for this episode of Birds and Shows, Austin. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this episode as we do What We Do in the Shadows. And speaking of another spooky show, Austin, next week I'm making you watch an anime, and this is a show you shouldn't let the kid watch. This is an anime called Dan to Dan. I fell in love with it. The internet fell in love with it. A lot of people fell in love with it. You've probably seen some scenes from it. And I will warn you, the first 2 episodes, you may want to watch them by yourself. And you'll know what I mean as it happens. But when you watch the show, you'll realize, okay, it's not that bad. But when you're watching it in the moment, it's a little bit of the like High School of the Dead level stuff where you're kind of like, oh, what am I watching here? So just a forewarning to you and anyone else going to join us for that. But the show levels out, and it's a funny premise, and I love it. So Austin, that's what we're watching next week for Birds and Shows. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this episode. And thank you all so much for stopping by, and thank you all so much for tuning in.